North Korea is sending thousands of troops to Russia.
All the while, we're talking about trivia. All the while, we're getting distracted by stuff like, oh, wow, isn't Tim Walz affable and friendly? All the while, we're impressed by Barack Obama's rapping skills. All the while, we're being told that Donald Trump mentioning Hitler is the worst thing that could ever happen in a conversation. We are on the precipice of a global conflict that might not have precedent. North Korea have aligned with Russia. There is an economic conference taking place that means that new financial relationships could form that could destabilize the dollar's global hegemony. That is a shift in power that's not happened in generations. These are the kind of epochal and tectonic shifts that define planets. What could be happening is a power for unipolar supremacy. Do we want to live in a world where China has a supreme power or Russia has supreme power or US imperialism continues? These are the kind of questions we should be thinking about, not whether or not Barack Obama's got bars, not whether or not different forms of identity and these kind of conversations that are defining our culture at the moment are madness. The reason for my continued advocacy for spiritual awakening, and specifically now a return to belief in Jesus Christ and a surrender to Jesus Christ, is because I don't think we have the tools in front of us to tackle what's happening from a rational and material perspective, because what's in front of us now could be the end times. No longer can we say each generation reflects narcissistically that it is them, surely them, that will see out the end of days, because each of us individually, tragically and sadly will expire. Perhaps we conflate that with some planetary apocalypse, because you're going to die, I'm going to die, our kids are going to die, but hopefully not on the same day as a result of poor policy making and inept diplomacy from the alleged leaders of the world. Let's have a look at Putin's new alliance with Kim Jong-un. I've never learned which one's un and which one's il. Let's have a look at that. Isn't that what we should be talking about? Rather than whether it's appropriate for Donald Trump to say in conversation, oh, Hitler had good generals. That's not the same as saying what Hitler did was good. That's a world away from that. And it reeks of scraping, not just the bottom of the barrel, but we're outside of the barrel now. Has he ever said anything about Hitler, what we could use? Well, he said that Rommel was fairly decent in a sand fight. Good, let's use that. And what's that we can hear coming over the horizon? Why, it's 1,000 Hiroshimas as North Korea and Russia align.
Turning now to the war in Ukraine and an ominous new development. The Pentagon has confirmed that North Korea is sending thousands of troops to Russia in what Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin calls a very, very serious escalation. And Ukraine's president believes he knows exactly where those troops are ultimately heading. CBS's chief foreign affairs correspondent Margaret Brennan has the story.
Video released by the Ukrainian government shows North Korean troops receiving military gear in Russia. CBS cannot independently verify the footage, but today Defense Secretary Austin confirmed that Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un have their troops training side by side at 3 specialized military sites inside of Russia.
What's brilliant about this is the news will try to have their cake and eat it. They'll want the scintillating excitement of reporting on war, it's war. Get those views, get that promo, get that advertising revenue, but they'll also have to carry the water for the establishment. This is nothing. So they're going to have to simultaneously dampen down this threat while trying to coax in viewers. It's a brilliant job for them to have to undertake. They'll also, of course, try to propagandize, oh, look, it's going so bad for Russia. They're having to rely on Koreans. Well, good luck using Rocket Man's rocket fuel. It's going to be a fantastic job for the media. But what I would like you to reflect on yourself is this. Imagine Trump was president right now, and during Trump's tenure, it emerged that a BRICS conference was taking place where China and India and highly populated and advancing nations were moving into alliance with Russia, not impacted by the fear and the sanctions, but were looking for an alternative future that didn't have America in it. Meanwhile, other nuclear powers are aligning with Russia. If Trump was president, right now they'd be going, we told ya that you couldn't entrust this man man with global power, wouldn't they? It would be everywhere. It would be all you'll be hearing about. Look at the ineptitude. This is what happens when you put a Hitler toddler in charge of the world's most powerful nation. Can you see it's falling apart? Can you see we're on the brink of Armageddon? But it's happening right now during what is still called the Biden administration, but has to be regarded in part as the first Kamala term. What an extraordinary, baffling, magnificent time to be alive. What an incredible time to awaken. How urgent it is that you, individually you, right now, take responsibility for your awakening.
There is evidence that there are DPRK troops, in Russia.
Ukrainian President Zelensky warned him that Russia may send those forces to Ukraine, proving Putin seeks to escalate, not negotiate. And South Korean officials say the number may soon climb to 10,000, revealing that Russia is already training 3,000 North Korean special forces how to operate equipment, including drones. U.S. officials said the North Korean soldiers traveled in mid-October by ship from North Korea to eastern Russia and could end up on the battlefield.
If Russia is indeed forced to turn to North Korea for manpower, this would be a sign of weakness, not strength, on the part of the Kremlin.
Good news, everyone! Nuclear powers are gathering and garnering their forces to oppose the American way of life. Vote for Kamala Harris. That is not good news. That is not a great thing, especially not when you consider it in the light of the current BRICS conference, which means that people are looking for viable alternatives to bypass America financially and economically, and people that know a lot more about this than me, and Lord alone knows there's a lot of them, will tell you that this country is built on debt. Debt that is explicitly forbidden in many of the scriptures that we hold sacred. We've got a debt-based economy. We've got a population that are disoriented. We've got a value system that's falling apart. Meanwhile, on the horizon, nuclear powers are lying against us. Why? Oh yeah, because of our friends in Ukraine. So when you hear Kamala Harris talking like a 9-year-old in a schoolyard, we don't abandon our friends. We don't abandon, there are more important issues to consider and contemplate right now. Like any sensible and sane person, surely you and I must pray for an end to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Surely America's might ought be used to bring about a diplomatic solution. The idea that an ongoing military conflict is sustainable, let alone winnable, against Russia is ridiculous. This could bring about the end of the way of life that all of us recognize and have come accustomed to. And maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's what maybe that's what's required for us to face the changes that need to be faced. We all remember Event 201. It's when we learned that potentially there were significant global forces acting a plan upon us that seemed dubious and suspicious. It was Bill Gates and the WEF and John Hopkins who ran a pandemic simulation in October 2019. A few months later, COVID hit. We're on the very precipice of an election, and at the recent bird flu summit, they announced a pandemic exercise this October, which obviously sounds eerily familiar. Create chaos, lockdowns, and perform medical tyranny. The wellness company, you might be familiar with them, have created a medical emergency kit that you can have in your home. It's a solution where you can protect yourself, your home, and your family. Every home in America should have one. It's got life-saving medications in it like ivermectin, amoxicillin, and even Z-Pak. It's backed by experts like Dr. Peter McCulloch. Your medical emergency kit is a necessity rather than a luxury, and you can protect your family now by heading to twc.health/brand and use the code BRAND, all caps, to save $30. Don't wait till it's too late. Act now. Take control. That's twc.health/brand and use the code BRAND to get $30 off. Plus, it's free shipping if you're in the United States. So take advantage of that while you can.
Russia has already lost roughly 600,000 soldiers, according to the Pentagon, and has turned to hired mercenaries from Cuba and other countries for manpower. An axis of U.S. adversaries are now helping Russia. Iran sent personnel and drones. China lent much-needed financial support, and North Korea sent munitions. The U.S. is still trying to figure out what Kim Jong-un thinks he's getting out of this deal, and fear it could include Russian expertise to help build out his nuclear program.
Because what it really is, I suppose, is that the United States, and I don't mean you and your family and your flag, I mean the set of deep state and corporate makes globalist interests that are ultimately trying to seek unipolar dominance. The idea that there is some sort of investigative presence. What does he want, Kim Jong? What's he after, this guy? How do we make sense of it? Well, what it looks like is you're not in control of the entire planet. And do you know what that makes me want to interrogate? The idea that we ever thought that we were. The idea that materialism and rationalism and individualism and the annihilation and removal of God would leave us in a place that through human thinking and through hierarchies that have human beings at the top of them, rather than God, would lead us to anything other than this apocalyptic nightmare. You can't allow the state, whether that's a nation state or a global state, to take the role of God, because what are the attributes that God has? Well, God is who decides what principles, virtues, and even laws we live by. God is the provider of grace. God is the provider of soteriology, salvation. God is the provider of the solutions for eschatology, what happens when we die. We don't give all of that to the state so that people with spreadsheets and deals with Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and Pfizer can determine what's right on any particular day for you and your family. Because one day they might decide it's right for you to die. And on that day, according to new laws just being passed, they'll have the power to achieve it. And according to new laws that are being passed around the world right now, you might not even have the right to communicate about it online. That's what happens when you make the state God. That is why Bill Gates is advocating to make the state God. That's why Klaus Schwab is advocating to make the state God. That's why you have now politicians that when you look at them, you think, aren't they too sort of stupid to be a president? The answer is yes, because intelligent and awakened people would recognize that what they were being invited to participate in was some kind of bizarrely Luciferian, or at least dark, oxymoronically, set of forces that are about total control. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat? Note how the media report on this story. Note what's excluded. Note how they try to balance out, oh, this is an exciting conflict. We need you to view it. Don't worry, though, and dampen it down. And dear old, is it John Kirby, that poor advocate for Armageddon, trying to manage it? It's good news. It's great. Good news, everyone. Another nation has joined Russia. What a silly, silly sausage.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.